for coming. My name is Diane Strutner. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Datazoom, and this is the state of data in video. I'll introduce myself and my company quickly. So at Datazoom, we've built a data control platform and automation engine that can detect data and events happening in real time and automates changes in real time. I've invited this panel to join me today to talk about how they're employing data within their video technology stack. So, Aaron?
Hey guys, good morning. Aaron Sloman. I'm the CTO at a company called OWNZONES. We have a media logistics platform, and we also have this product we call Discover, which is a SaaS product which has about 20 odd companies that use us to power all their OTT apps. So they have a console, they log into it, they manage their apps in our cloud, and then that impacts their Roku, Apple TV, whatever it is. I think we have 12 platforms that we support. And so, data is very important to us because every time we show our new customers or prospective customers what we're doing, the first things they ask is a data question.
Hello, my name is Abe Gottesman. I'm the CRO at Promethean TV. We are an interactive video platform. We come from the esports space. We were a live streamer to about 20 million people on a monthly basis, and we saw a real great need for interactivity. We use data in many ways. We bring in all kinds of sources of data to deliver analytics to our broadcasters, and on the flip side, we're also utilizing data to automate the whole audience engagement. So working with groups like Sport Radar, pulling in their sports data feeds, and touchdown happens, we trigger an automatic engagement ad, message, interactive opportunity for the audience.
I'm Rob Dillon. I'm the digital operations manager for Tribune Media Company, media conglomerate. We have 42 local TV stations, so we're a traditional broadcaster. We also have a cable channel, radio station, various forward-facing units of pieces here and there, Zap to it, the channel guides, things like that. So within the different business units, we all have different demands for data. Some of the business units are just now coming on, hey, what is this? And other business units are more advanced, so our needs are all over the place.
Hello, good morning. My name is James Hooper. I'm product manager of video services for Pluralsight. Just by a show of hands, how many have heard of Pluralsight before? Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so Pluralsight's, we just recently went public. We're an online technology learning company, and we have a growing library of more than 6,700 online courses. And we help people, individuals, and companies who want to close the technology skills gap. Before coming to Pluralsight, I also helped with a lot of live event streaming and on-demand media production for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For example, we broadcast a live global event twice a year where we streamed 12 hours of content in 27 languages simultaneously and delivered more than 10,000 on-demand video files in as many as 95 languages. And I've been with Pluralsight for about a year now, and excited to be on the panel.
Awesome. So I just want to cover, we're all here obviously because we are well aware of the increase of video that we're putting over the internet. With the amount of infrastructure that's required to run all of these systems, we're creating a lot of data. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is that we're on average using 4 to 6 different analytics tools to assess data. And part of what I want to talk about today is what some of the challenges are to a multi-tenanted approach when it comes to analytics. I also want to cover the difference between, metrics and data itself. So metrics are really subjective computations that are taken over raw data. Raw data are objective measurements that are based upon occurrences that we can repeat and understand consistently in and between all systems. So moving on, I want to ask our first question here. So currently there's a lot of talk in our industry about data and analytics. Data has been really dubbed the new oil, and it's well known that companies like Facebook and Amazon and Netflix and Google have really employed data-first strategies to stay ahead of the competition. So I'm curious to understand from you guys how you view data within your organization, what priorities it receives, and how it gets used. So specifically, what data are you looking at today? What sources do you have for this type of data? And what data has your organization found the most valuable for capturing and monitoring? Aaron?
I'll go first. So at OWNZONES, one of our challenges is that most of our customers are big enterprise companies, and they already have invested in analytics platforms. And so quite often they actually come to us saying, this is what we use across our enterprise, this is how we track viewership and trends and things like that, and we need your OTT platform to support it as well. So we have a lot of different platforms that we work with based on our customers, hence why we're working with Datazoom too, because we want to make it more plug and play. But you know, our architecture is basically we have big data repositories up in AWS, we have Tableau on top of that, and then we have connectors into it from many different systems. We connect to all the different app stores, and each one of them has a very different way of thinking about a cancellation or a subscription, or you know, a billing event, or how long after someone cancels when they should be removed. We plug into products like Conviva. We have player agents that send us metrics off the players. We have a lot of different feeds coming into our data warehouses, and then what we do is we normalize that up into these dashboards for our customers. And so as we've evolved in the last 6 months, we've turned that now into dynamic experiences for our customers. And so, you know, it's no longer acceptable to say what's new. It's you know, what's new for you. What's new for you because you pressed the fast forwards button on the last 2 shows you watched, or you changed the category or something, right? And so a lot of what we're doing is actually using the data now to build personalization.
That's great. And James, like I know from working with you previously, you guys have a very data-forward approach to how you run things at Pluralsight. Some interesting use cases when I was working with you as an analytics vendor as well that we wanted to work through. So can you tell me a bit about data when it comes to Pluralsight strategy?
Yeah, as you said, we try to be very data-driven at Pluralsight. We believe every company is actually a technology company. When you think about it, technology is a big part of your strategy. But the best companies are also data companies, right? They have learned how to leverage data to make better decisions. And ironically, in the video space, we were doing really well, and then at some point, Pluralsight made the decision to actually stop our quality of service analytics, so I'm trying to get that back. Mm-hmm. But in other areas, we've done a lot of really good tracking, for example, with our interactive courses. You know, an interactive course is where a user will watch a clip, and then they'll have an in-browser challenge where they'll get to, you know, type some code and make sure that they learned what they just viewed. And if they miss the challenge, then they can either go back and watch the video, or they can skip forward if they want, or they can have it show them the answer. And we're collecting data about every part of that interaction. So we know exactly which challenges are the most difficult to answer. We know where in the course people are dropping off, and can tie that back to maybe the clip is too difficult to understand, or need to rewrite the challenge question. But by analyzing all of that interaction, we're able to improve our content.
Awesome. Okay. Anybody? Okay, cool. So, you know, the average content distributor uses 4 to 6 analytics tools within the player. You'll see things like Conviva, ComScore, Adobe Heartbeat, Nielsen, Google Analytics, all being employed. That's a lot of analytics. I mean, Aaron, you probably know better than anyone because you see what all these requests are coming in from customers. And I know that in my previous experience, part of the reason why we're using tools like Conviva and Adobe Heartbeat and Mux and, you know, New Relic, all of these QE tools out there is to actually understand the viewing experience. So we're posed with the question of, okay, if we employ these analytics tools, what can I therefore learn about the experience, and therefore what changes can I make? So I want to kind of get into the weeds here. What types of tools are you guys using today when it comes to measuring video? And then what actions are you actually taking out of those insights? Are there any use cases that you can share that have been helpful?
Well, on our side, it's interesting. Obviously we're a content provider, so you guys are like people I should be hiring. But every single thing we measure, whether it's Roku or Amazon Fire TV or Apple TV or our apps or online or desktop, has a different analytics platform. You know, Roku uses Roku, and Ooyala Analytics, we use Ooyala as our VOD provider. And you know, Amazon Fire's in Flurry, and Android TV's in Flurry, and Apple TV is off in Apple's Wonderland. And so it's a challenge for us and for our business intelligence people to pull that data together and then make sure it's apples to apples and oranges to oranges, and not, you know, this Apple Play data and how long they watched doesn't match up to Roku's numbers, and they're way off. And even though they're different platforms, we know somebody's not just watching 5 seconds here and a minute and a half here. And so she has a challenge turning those into numbers that our stations can actually use.
Right.
I think we deal with the same thing, right? We're getting view numbers, and what is a view, right? And the CDN will tell you views one thing, and OVP will tell you views something else, and what's a unique view? You know, what is, you know, when you look at what's real time and latency and how that affects things. So while you're pulling it from a lot of different data sources, normalization of the data always becomes the key. You know, how are you presenting the data to your customers? And then how are you using that data to make sure that you're measuring it effectively to create best practices for your customers?
And let's talk about normalization right now. What are you guys doing, if anything, to try and normalize data coming from all these different analytics tools today?
In my case, my business intelligence person calls me and says, "What the hell is this?" And then her and I have to work through the numbers together to see where a happy normalization occurs, so that we can then present that to our stations or to our national salespeople, who are all looking for different data and different metrics. So right now, it's one of our largest channels and or challenges, and we're a little late to the game. We've tried different analytics platforms. You know, on the actual digital side, we're pretty much standardized. We use ComScore and standard digitals. On the video measurement side, it's still the Wild West for us.
And how do you, so, you know, in and between all these systems, heard it many times on the panel today, you talk about different systems having different metrics in terms of like viewership numbers or things that are coming out. So what is your source of truth then, or how are you trying to approach finding a source of truth if you have different metrics that are completely conflicting with one another? And what, you know?
Again, it really comes to finding a happy medium. You know, we'll look at one platform where the number on this same video is really high, and another platform where it's really low, and we'll look at both of those, and neither of those make sense. So let's go to another platform and see if there's something in the middle. It's really a lot of intelligent guessing, just because I've been in the industry long enough. We understand, as a traditional broadcaster, we understand our audiences, and we have science that tells us when people come in and when they cut off, and so we have to do a lot of massaging of the data personally. Not through any kind of tools, just looking at it in a spreadsheet and going, that's wrong, that makes a little more sense.
But I mean, I guess ultimately though, all of these tools are exposing metrics to you, right? And I think part of the issue, maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree, is that we actually don't have access to the layer behind that, which is the raw data, to actually analyze what's going on. Because ultimately, there was
the raw data is impossible to interpret unless you were the actual person writing the algorithms and the tools that are presenting that.
Right, because
we've had some tools where the data provided to us, you know, we've just looked at it and it's like, okay, the station wants something that's in here, you figure it out, because we can't, and I've got data scientists that can't figure it out. So, you know, you're looking at me like you're wanting an answer, and we don't have one. It's a big challenge.
Maybe that's
and that's where some of the players in the industry, your company and the other gentleman on the panel, you know, can help content providers like us get to a standardization level like we have now at ComScore on the pure digital side and things like that.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how do you guys approach, therefore, investigating the metrics you see coming from these systems? Do you go back and do you ask your providers for the raw data? Are they willing to share? How does that look, that process?
It depends on how important the request is from the station and how much, you know, if this comes from our C levels, yes, we will go down and we'll go back to the providers. I've got one of my vendors sitting here in the front row staring at me, and he's helped me many times go back and dig through numbers to provide if it comes from the C levels. So But if it's just a local sales rep, we'll just, best possible answer.
Okay.
Time seems to heal some of the wounds. So when you have to report in real time, you're almost always off.
Okay, let's take a bit, because I actually skipped a part of what I wanted to do today. I just want to go down the road. What do you think real time is to you in your industry right now? What do you define as real time? Because we hear it everywhere. It's written on everyone's promotional materials. What is real time defined for all of you? What's that time frame?
So for us, we want to be able to impact the playlist so that based upon the behavior of the viewer, especially if we're running a non-paid service.
Right.
So if it's more anonymized with ad supported,
Right, okay.
especially we want to be queuing up video based upon the interaction of that user right then.
So numerically, what do you estimate real time to be?
As long as it takes for that video to end.
Okay.
Well, for them to hit the next button and to give them the right one instead of the one that we thought we were going to give them.
Gotcha.
So people enter into categories of content by accident. Mm-hmm. It's posted on Facebook. They get a link. It's on a homepage somewhere. And they click through like Drudge Report, links to one of your Tribune stations. And all of a sudden your video players just crash because there's 5 million people trying to play a fire video or something of our fires or something. And so the question is, what do you show them next to keep them on your site? And you may have never seen this user before. And so you've really got to make real-time decisions now and have different paths you can go down. Is this a Gen X? Are they head of research? What are they doing? Mm-hmm. And make real-time decisions. And so I think that's what drives your session time up, ultimately.
For us, it's all about frame accuracy because there is no real time, right? So on a broadcast, satellite broadcast, maybe it's a 9-second delay, but you've got low latency providers now who are saying they're even faster than satellite. And if you start looking at OTT platforms, whether it's mobile or you're looking on your PC, those times are all going to be different. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's frame accuracy, right? We have to be frame accurate regardless of what the real time is, regardless of what device you're watching on.
So to be frame accurate, how fast does your system operate?
Oh, milliseconds. I mean,
Milliseconds.
it's super fast.
Okay.
Yeah, for us, it really depends on the use case, right? Where we support skills development leader analytics. So that's like an engineering manager that wants to know how their team is doing watching videos. And so in this case, real time means when the learner's done watching the video and walks to their boss's office and says, I watched the video, then his report better show that he watched the video or he's going to be upset at us, right? So in that case, real time might be a couple of minutes, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're talking about something as critical as CDN switching or back in the time when I was doing live event streaming, real time was milliseconds, right? And as Abe pointed out, real time is really a misnomer. There's always going to be some kind of latency, right? And so it just depends on your use case, what kind of latency you can tolerate. And I can say from my experience in streaming live that every millisecond seems like minutes, every minute seems like hours, right? If there's a problem, we had one experience where our CDN was performing badly, and we were trying to make a decision whether to make a publishing change that would be suboptimal in certain areas, but would probably be better than the problem we thought we were experiencing. But the data didn't arrive for 5 minutes, and we sat there for 5 minutes wondering whether or not to make this publishing change. And we knew that once we made the publishing change, it was going to be another 15 minutes before it propagated to the cache. And so that was extremely painful to wait 5 minutes for the data from the CDN. In that case, I wish real time had been milliseconds.
The term self-healing came up here, and I want to dive into that. So, we hear this term self-healing oftentimes when it comes to networks, where you have an end-to-end system, we're gathering data at different hops along the network, and we're using that data to automate changes and self-heal. So I think one of the biggest challenges of our industry is that we're all trying to employ best-of-breed solutions, but they're all coming from different vendors. So how do we really create a seamless end-to-end experience at all times? And I really think that, in my opinion, that's one of the key success factors for, again, giants like Facebook and Netflix and Google, is that because they control this end-to-end stack, they're able to automate changes and have one part of the stack influence another part of the stack in real time. So, I guess if the industry is going to make strides towards trying to achieve the same type of parity that we get from these really big vendors, let's talk about what needs to happen. So first of all, internally, have you guys built up on your own, part of your own stacks, any type of self-healing architecture within the video stack, and what was required to set this up, and has it been successful? Anybody? Maybe CDN switching might be an approach.
I could answer that, but it's not going to be a great answer. It's all manual on our behalf, and how do we know if the network goes down? I get a call from one of my TV stations, and then it's all manual on my side. I don't have any of the automated tools or measurements in there. I'm still trying to get people on my side to understand the importance of having a quality experience monitoring, quality of service monitoring, rather than having a TV station call me and say, we're getting user complaints. I did a parade on Sunday from New York City, very high profile, and the only way I knew it wasn't working, because it was working fine for me, but the station called me and said, nobody can watch this. So it would have been nicer to have a tool that was based in the New York area that knew something wasn't right. Because for me, sitting in Indianapolis monitoring it, it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, similar. I mean, CDN switching is what we're trying to get. We just barely inked a deal with nice people at work to use Ubora to do CDN switching, right? And we do that because that's what we can do. And would be really nice if if the CDNs had that data and proactively fixed the problem, and we wouldn't have to change anything, right? Or the transit provider or the ISP, whoever it is having the issue. And so I really appreciate a lot of what Datazoom is doing in that regard to try and share that data upstream, because that will be a good day when that happens. But right now, I mean, as a distributor of content, what we can do is automate the analysis of bad performing data, and CDN switching is I mean what we can do today.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we have the same challenge. Self-healing just doesn't work for us today. You've got so many potential points of failure along the way.
Right.
And then, so you're working with the CDN, you've got this great ping, but then something falls apart, and all of a sudden, instead of you're dealing with Brazil, instead of it's coming out of Sao Paulo, it's coming out of Virginia. And as Rob said, you don't hear about it because you're looking at it and it's the same experience, but your customers in Brazil are looking at it and going, wait, the lag this is impossible to watch. Buffering lag is impossible. So, we haven't gotten to that point yet. We're trying to.
And do you feel like you have the data that you need to do this? I mean, from my experience too, I think one of the challenges can be that we might be looking at data in a lot of silos today. So we have a QoE analytics tool for the player, and then we have log data coming from the CDN. And there's a lot of gaps in there. So I think if this is truly an end-to-end structure, you need some way of kind of being able to join this data together and actually understand correlation to therefore understand causation, right?
Yeah.
Are you able to do those types of things today between all of these systems?
The challenge is that the systems really aren't set up so they're common data, right? And you have Akamai, and they want you to look at their data sets and their data points, and maybe you're working with Brightcove as your OVP with your Akamai CDN, and obviously when you're switching, you're going to have multi-CDN solution, and you're going to have potentially a multi-OVP solution, and they're just going to point fingers as to why this happened and where this happened along the chain. And when you say, you guys got to get together, give me one set of data, it just never happens.
So I was going to say, what are some things that your vendors, you guys are all using vendors, can do today? Maybe it's your CDN, maybe it's your player company, maybe it's your analytics company, so that we can get towards this kind of unified, single data set. We're really trying to find, I guess, a point of truth, right, across all these systems, and ultimately there needs to be some alignment. So what are some things that you would like to see happen from your CDN vendors, from your player companies, from all these organizations who you employ to create this experience for your users?
Well, we work with lots of CDNs because our customers tell us what CDN they want to use, and normally we disagree. But the Streaming Video Alliance that quite a few of us belong to is a group of industry players. Basically, anybody can join. And there's some really good work that's gone on there. Firstly, to come up with a taxonomy around the analytics so that a play is a play and a pause is a pause and a dropped connection is a drop connection. And we haven't seen enough adoption of that yet. And so once we see more vendors plug in and come up with a taxonomy around how we determine metrics, that's going to help a lot, because then we're going to have a more common language. Right now, every analytics platform and monitoring platform is speaking its own language. It's like the UN, trying to translate between 200 different companies. And so once we get some standardization there, I think that's going to help. And the SVA is pushing that pretty hard, and they'll publish some standards and white papers. And there's a lot of people in the room that are a part of that. So I think getting the vendors on that is the first thing. And the other thing is getting the CDNs to listen. Because 9 times out of 10, we'll report a fault with a CDN. They're like, it's fine here.
But to defend the CDN just a little bit, do you think part of the issue is that the CDNs would like to do a better job, and you're telling them like, hey buddy, you're screwing me over here, but they don't have any of the tools or the data in the right place, shared in the right way to actually do much with it? Like, I know there's a lot of solutions out there, more specifically talking about CDNs, that are trying to do things like expose the edge nodes and things like that. I mean, have you found all of that to be useful data to share with them? Has it been useful in actually helping to manage that relationship? Or is potentially a better approach being like, hey, I'm going to share you the raw data coming out of the player so that you guys can, form whatever metrics you like, but just do a better job? I mean, how have you?
My experience is that's a very premium service right now. And I know most of them do that.
Okay.
But I know none of my customers will pay that much money. And they're okay with a player retrying and using our failover algorithm to route to another CDN and try to restream that segment that we were streaming. So the customer experience versus cost seems to be what I see, because that from most of the vendors I see that as you might do that for the Olympics, but most of us are in an OTT where we're charging someone $5 a month for all the videos they can eat, and so it doesn't make mathematical sense for us anyway.
So are you able to employ many of the insights that you currently get from your QoE tools today?
No, but we know we have insights.
Okay.
That's great.
So I guess before we kind of move into Q&A, if there's any Q&A, I want to understand from all of you guys today, what are some of the priorities for your team when it comes to data, things that you really hope to address coming up in 2019?
Well, for us, it's all about machine learning and using data for automation. So we're getting these raw data feeds, and we're getting it from the player, and we're getting it from third-party sources, and we're utilizing all of that data, whether it's based on the user data or based on analytical data. But taking that data and learning more from that data, especially in a live video environment, that's really what we're hopeful that we'll see some advancements in 2019. There's been a lot of advancement on the on-demand environment, and the live environment, it's trailing somewhat. So we're looking forward to that.
James?
Yeah, so number one for me on the data front is, of course, getting quality of service analytics back, right? I feel like I'm flying blind. We're probably doing a pretty good job streaming in the US. Don't hear a lot of complaints, right? But we also have a lot of learners in India and in other parts of the world, in Asia, that may or may not know how to be very vocal if they're having a problem. And if I really feel like if you don't know what your buffer ratio is, you're having a buffering problem somewhere. I just don't know how bad it is or where, right? So very, very excited to get Eubora in place and be able to start tracking quality of service metrics. That's number one. Number two, the team we had a hack day, and one of our engineers actually got us 75% of the way to do per title encoding with HLS, and so that's going to be another exciting thing for us to do, to be able to optimize bandwidth in that way. And then lastly, once we have Eubora, we want to start evaluating our CDN partnerships and looking for potential other partners that are excelling in other parts of the world that are very strategic to us.
Gotcha.
For me, it depends on the business unit again. So my cable channel, looking forward to actually getting quality of service, quality experience implemented, because on our cable channel we actually provide originals. Programming that we purchased and we put up has to be authenticated, but we're putting out original programming, 30-minute hour spots, and we really want to be able to measure that and make sure it's being, giving the optimal experience. Then you can go to my TV stations or my OTT platforms. We're not really that concerned about quality experience at this time. Especially with my connected device apps, I'm more interested in, as you were talking earlier, getting another video lined up that they actually want to watch. And in the news business, that's difficult. In some of my stations, the nostalgia is bigger than the actual news. Some of my stations don't. The weather never gets played, the sports never gets played, but let's see this story on Ronald Reagan from 1984, and that gets played. So getting some intelligence behind there, whether it's MI or through or AI or through a vendor, so that we can keep them in within the app, and then that keeps my salespeople happy because they're selling more ads. And then you look at our desktops and our mobile, our actual station apps or our station websites. We're getting a lot of data from that now, and it's a matter of having the time, the energy, and the resources to interpret that data to get a better idea of the behavior of our users on those platforms. We've done a lot of research on, how long people will watch, how long they'll listen to an anchor jibber jabber on each end before they drop off. And, with Facebook, that was really important because if they didn't watch it all, we didn't make any money on it. So, each business unit and each part of the unit is at a different state. And it's just a matter of advancing that and getting the knowledge in so that we can keep providing a better experience.
Gotcha.
I think we're going to hire Cambridge Analytics so we can mine our customers and make some more CPM money on each customer. But I think for us, it is about connecting more data in.
Yeah.
So, where do they come from? How did they get here? Why did they get there? Google Analytics provides some of those insights, but it doesn't line up with your player data. We're going to constantly keep bringing more feeds in, and that's the Datazoom connection for us. So we don't have to do as much work with each implementation integration.
Yep.
So I think that's priority one, and priority two is more programmatic events off the data.
Okay.
So more driving the user experience more and more to where the person says, "This is freaky," how it knew that I want to see this next. Right? We want to keep them engaged.
Gotcha.
And so personalization.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think personalization is a common theme.
Yep.
Yeah, how can we use that data to make that experience as personalized, as individual as possible?
Yeah.
Cool. I think I'll open up the floor to any questions out there. Anybody? No? Comments? Anything?
That was more of a comment.
Yeah.
And, hopefully I will get a chance to see all of you guys in the CDN optimization panel that's happening at 11:30. But there are technologies out there that allow you to be able to have sort of a centralized origin where all of your CDNs can kind of funnel into, and that provide you with real-time visibility across those CDNs. Because the problem with going to a CDN and complaining about something or saying that you think that they have an issue, if you don't have the data that shows where that issue is, like where there's a bottleneck or there's congestion, you really have nothing to stand on. It's just a back and forth type engagement. But there are technologies out there, and there are technologies that allow you to be able to sort of create more flexibility in being able to switch between the edge providers. I think, sometimes there's a little bit of a black box out there when you're dealing with a multi-CDN environment, but there are solutions out there that can address a lot of the concerns that you guys have. So hopefully you'll be in that session and we can chat a little bit more.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
just one comment on that. I've looked at a lot of those, and so far my concern with a lot of them is how much ownership they want to take over, for example, that experience. I might need to take segments of my HLS and put it in someone else's data center. I'm not willing to do that at this point if I don't have the confidence.
Now, are you
And
talking
that,
about from a physical infrastructure perspective?
yeah.
This wouldn't be a physical infrastructure. It would just sort of kind of be like your CDN today, where you point DNS to your CDN. You point DNS, basically point all of the CDNs to a centralized caching or origin. It sort of
Yeah.
becomes a mid-res origin in front of your origin as a layer of protection.
Yep.
And then it gives you all the capabilities that you would get in that one CDN, like request collapsing, like when you're dealing with things like the stampeding herd, and then you're in a multi-CDN environment, what happens is you've got multiple CDNs CDNs actually coming into your origin trying to obtain that piece of content, well, you need to be able to do things like request collapse across all your CDNs and basically combine all of those multiple requests and only send one request back to origin when you don't have it in cache. So those are some of the...
I understand.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else out there? Yeah.
Regarding the personalization, you mentioned that. What do you think of the state of data trying to reach that goal right now?
So the question is, what is the state of data when it comes to trying to achieve personalization? Where are we at? Where do we need to go? What needs to happen in the middle?
I think there's actually enough data. It comes down to some very basic metrics to drive personalization. It's really engagement. And sometimes in the player, you can do things like gamify it to get more engagement, like thumbs up, thumbs down, or I like this, or add it to my favorites, or share it. And anytime you get any of those events, you know you've got a winner, you know? And so a lot of that then comes back to looking at your repository. And a lot of our repositories are getting bigger and bigger and bigger with, 20 years of TV episodics or, licensing deals that are going on. We're starting to see, we used to have a lot of small libraries and now we're seeing fewer, bigger libraries. And so, I saw Grey Matter just walk in the room. Tools like Grey Matter and products like that need to be used in combination, or Amazon Recognition and Google and that need to be used in combination with the data we have to be able to match it together. Because if I find somebody that likes a particular genre, actor, actress, theme, we need to be able to pick that out of what they're watching and then draw that line to it. And we're no longer looking in that same catalog anymore. We might be looking across our whole library for something to play next, which matches that. There are people that just like to watch train rides. There's all sorts of these genres out there that you can never predict. You have to be able to analytically work it out real time.
And I think actually that's exactly what I was going to say, is that I think what I've heard a few times is essentially the data for personalization is probably there, but the tools that deploy and deliver the data in the right time frame maybe need to grow a little more. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't think you can make I could understand that Diane's watching this and she likes it, but it's really hard to look at my library and look at the synopsis, actors, actresses, and a genre field, and work out that if Diane will like that too, without knowing the content of what's in it,
Right.
and how that statistically has a confidence score match on what this one is, So that's where we're heading, I think.
Speed of data, joining the data together. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Bhavesh.
About, you had mentioned before about certain people will just charge $5 a month for the video or whatnot, so they might not care as much. Has that been a challenge to get people to actually care about the data coming through and the fact that there are things that are going?
It depends on the type of content. Like for us, live is just a nightmare. Because, if they're watching a live stream and someone misses someone getting KO'd or something, and they pay $20 for it, every single person wants their money back. Yeah, but I'd love to hear you guys.
My world, obviously, I don't charge for anything because we're, again, that word, traditional broadcaster. It's very difficult to get anybody to care about the numbers until they needed them yesterday. And so they don't give me a real good tool set to collect those numbers to give them to them yesterday. When it comes to the OTT, the connected devices, VOD, I don't think right now anybody but sales cares. And they obviously, sales never has the consumer's best interest in heart, really. It's like, how many more ads can I get shoved in here, and what are the metrics on the ad
Well,
views?
I was going to say, actually, probably the thing that you would care most about is the quality of your ad delivery.
Yeah.
How's that for you today?
Or the side of the ad blocks. And what do you do with
Yeah,
ad
on the ad
block
blocks,
content?
and so that's one of the reasons why my salespeople are so into the connected devices right now, is because there's no block, especially Roku. You can't block an ad on Roku. You can hack Amazon Fire, Android, or Apple, and put. I think Apple TV has an ad blocker, but they love this platform idea because they can feed ads and it not be blocked. The ad experience itself, I wish we had numbers better on that. This has came up, I think, in every panel I've been on. this year, or at least
So you
every
want better
conversation
ad
is,
data?
you know, I never want to drink another Stella Artois in my life because I saw their ads 6 times in a row in the break on every major stream, and it didn't matter who I was watching. That was the buy, and it was that Chalet ad 6 times in a row. And
Yeah.
even though it was for a great thing, you know, Water for Africa or whatever it was, it's, you know, and that tells you right there 6 times in a row, and it didn't sink in. I just know it was for charity. But I never want to drink another one of their beers as long as I live.
I mean, I think part of the, yeah, that's, I feel you. I think part of the challenge there too, especially when it comes to ads and when it comes to data with ads, is that today, as you say, we don't have a ton of great data around ads. We're also putting all of our eggs in one basket using a single ad server. And when it comes to quality of the ad delivery, I know that latency is a huge issue. I know some things that we're trying to work on at Datazoom is how do we tackle ad latency. I don't care about what ad you're going to get, but I just at least want to make sure that you get the ad you should be getting and that your fill rates are good and things like that.
Right.
And I think part of the challenge there has always been around data and the speed of connectivity between those other types of systems, accelerating
I
that.
agree 100%.
Yeah, and it's definitely different in the OTT environment
Yeah.
and in the traditional environment. It's
Yeah,
much more of a mess than OTT, with cap rates and all over the place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else out there? No? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming and for sitting in on this, and love to chat with you guys afterwards about data and all that fun stuff, so thank you.